Westeros!
And welcome to our Morning Throners podcast. I'm Nelson.
I'm Jeff.
I'm Kyle. And we're the fucking Morning Throners.
And welcome back to another episode of your favorite Song of Ice and Fire podcast. We are your Morning Throners. Got another Tyrion 1 on deck out of Storm of Swords. And here we go.
Long one. Longest by far, right? This book so far?
So far, long pages. I don't think from what we do.
I don't think it'll be a super long podcast. Pretty much just two conversations, Bronn and Tywin.
Yeah. But it was 13 pages. Longest one yet.
Yeah, and I think it was a little bit more or less recap of knowledge we knew, at least, which was kind of nice, right? Like, I was kind of thinking, because we'd been talking about the past few chapters of just these welcome back, here we are chapters, but this one kind of filled in a lot of
some King's
stuff
Landing.
Tyrion even missed, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's a good connecting chapter, too. Like, it connects a little bit with what was going on with the Harrenhal stuff right before Arya left, so. Also, time skip. I'm not exactly sure how long after, but Tywin at one point says a fortnight, right? So I think in the last Tyrion chapter at the end, I'm sure I looked it up, he sends for Bronn. It kind of how it ends. He's like, Podrick, go get Bronn, right? And then here Bronn shows up and Tyrion's like, I sent for you a fortnight ago. And Bronn's like, you sent for me 4 days ago. So I think that places those two chapters, like the last Tyrion chapter was 4 days ago.
I mean, is Tyrion just confused about time right now?
I think so, but people are telling him time, right? So Bronn tells him, you sent for me 4 days ago, which to me says the last Tyrion chapter was 4 days ago. Alayaya was released, someone tells him this, that she was released 8 or 9 days ago, which means the battle is at least that long ago. But then Tywin at one point, when he's like, you didn't come to visit me, he says, you've been out of danger for a fortnight at least, which means...
So it's been at least a fortnight since Blackwater. Plus time he healed.
Yeah, so maybe like 17 days later. Again, it doesn't super matter, but...
Yeah, timeline doesn't matter.
2 to 3 weeks after.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue over 5 days. We'll go with that.
What were you saying?
No. I'm not going to argue over
I'm giving it a range. I'm saying 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
Deal.
All
right, so Kyle, what did you think? Did you like the convos?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was kind of interesting to see where Tyrion stands now, right? Like, he's kind of learning. I mean, he even says it at one point. They've pulled his claws out one by one, so.
Yeah, I think he says his own family does this too.
Yeah. But, like, I mean, here he is. He's kind of harmless now. Like, all of his pieces that he put in place to protect himself have been knocked down. Even Bronn is almost leaving. So.
Yeah, he's barely holding on to Bronn. He's basically got Pod now. That's who he's got.
Who he can trust, right? I mean, he's proved himself, but he's an idiot outside of combat.
KD ratio too.
I think you have to, right?
Yeah, Pod. Yeah, you're basically.
Well, no, I mean, I think
you have to have a positive KD.
Yeah.
It could be even.
Yeah.
Kyle, what do you think of the Tywin combo? I love the Tywin conversation. There's going to be a big quote in there. I try to keep the quotes to a minimum, but the ends we're basically to the last page or so.
Yeah, I mean, Tywin shreds him, right? Like
Tywin,
Tywin doesn't hold back anymore. You could just feel that he had this bottled up for a long time.
Well, they both did. I mean, even Tyrion kind of said, like, 19 years or whatever since Jaime took the White Cloak and all that, and nobody said anything, and they've just kind of... been hanging there, and now here it is.
I think I said this in the last chapter that when Tyrion's in his bed. It's easy. I feel like it's easy for us as readers to be like on Tyrion's side, like, oh, he is getting the short end of the stick. I'm not saying he's not getting the short end of the stick, but there's a point where he's like, I saved the city, and like Tywin's right. If Tywin didn't show up, it doesn't matter what Tyrion did. They're all dead.
No, it does, because if he didn't do the chain stuff...
I remember talking about this last time. Jeff gave us the pitcher analogy, right? Tyrion's the starter, Tywin's the reliever. They both contributed to the win. Yeah. I'm just saying, it's easy as readers in this analogy. Moment when it is a great analogy.
Genius. What a fucking genius.
It's easy as readers to be like, wow, Tyrion is getting shafted here. But one of my favorite quotes, which I said definitely in the spoiler section of that podcast we did, that I just didn't say because Tywin didn't say it till here. And I have this, I think I said in the spoiler section, I have this on my computer, like I have it on a sticky note at work. Mummers and monkeys require applause. This is what Tywin tells Tyrion at one point here. Like, yeah, you just do shit because you're supposed to do it. You do the right thing. It's kind of like some integrity. You know what I mean? Like, you show up and you do the right thing because it's the right thing, not because you're going to get a pat on the back.
That's bullshit.
It's not quite the same thing.
That is such bullshit, like, work culture, though. Like, of I know. You don't get recognized for your achievements. Like, go fuck off, man. He put all that in motion. He is the reason that Tywin had time to get there. Like, Tywin should shut his fucking mouth.
I think I'm in the middle ground of both of you.
I'm in the middle ground too. I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit for Tywin here, but I'm also.
You always say that, but I don't think you are ever.
No, Nelson's definitely an extremist.
It's interesting to talk about. I don't think.
Yeah, we wouldn't have a podcast if we agreed on everything.
It's clearly not fair how Tyrion's being treated, but I also like Tywin has a point when he says that. Like, again, we'll get to it, but like I'm jumping a little bit.
It sucks that this is what would piss me off if I was Tyrion. And we're gonna get into it, but whatever. Let's just talk about it now because it's on the front of our mind. Like Cersei gets credit for the wildfire.
Yeah,
like that's
she had something to do with it, right?
She had like a little bit, but nothing to the production that would have for what they were actually going to do, right? So that's just something that he obviously did.
It's something, we don't ever see it on page, right? But when Tyrion does get involved with the wildfire, what he says is he commands Jacelyn Bywater to take them with bottles of red paint or bottles of paint, right? With like green paint and start trying to fling these clay pots with green paint from catapults or whatever. Yeah. And if there's green paint anywhere, they're fired. You know what I mean? And I don't know if in the battle we actually heard of wildfire falling from the sky. We definitely heard of fire falling from the sky, but I don't know if they ever actually ended up flinging any wildfire.
I bet they were flinging some stuff.
I'm just wondering if like maybe that training went horribly. Right?
We will. I don't know.
And maybe if Cersei was in charge or not, again, I'm trying to give Tyrion some credit here. Maybe Cersei wouldn't have had the foresight to do the training, and she would have just been like, fling the shit from the walls, and then there's a huge catastrophe.
Well, not even that. I think he also instrumentally increased the production, right?
Yes. He said like every pyromancer should now be working on this project.
So like, sure, it was her idea, but he was the one that saw it through to the end. Like, I don't know.
We don't even know what Cersei was making it for.
She probably blew up the city.
My point here is I think Tyrion is being a little bit peevish, right? Like we'll get to it, but Tywin says like, what do you want? Like, okay, do you want lands, castles, some office? I don't take that as sarcastic. Like he's literally willing to give Tyrion what he wants, and Tyrion just snaps back like a little like.
I think it might be a little bit sarcasm there.
But Tyrion snaps back and he's like, "All I want is gratitude." And Tywin's like, "Shut the fuck up! I'm offering you literally castles, and you want me to say thank you? Take a hike."
Yeah, no. This is his fucking dad that has withheld any affection for him his entire life. He just wants to say thank you, Tyrion, is all he wants. Yeah, that's all he wants.
Or like,
I get it, but if you remove the familial relationship there, Tywin.
But you can't.
I know.
No, this is bullshit too, because you hear everyone that's getting something right, like Bronn.
Knighted.
The Bronn's knighted, the Tyrells are the heroes. Everybody's like, holy shit. Tyrion has been really shit on his whole life.
He has no nose.
Probably like the one thing that he's like really done out of selflessness, and like they should at least be on court and be like, thank you, Tyrion, for your efforts. Whatever. Maybe bullshit. You gave everybody else the applause. Like, I'm sure when Tywin walked in on his horse, right? Was that a thing? Did we see this?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Okay, like you can say your mummers and monkeys line, but don't ride in on your fucking horse then. Walk in there like a normal dude.
Yeah, who got the most applause out of anyone? You did, right? Yeah.
And one more thing.
I'm not saying Tywin's not a hypocrite, but he definitely makes good points. He is a huge hypocrite, though.
Maybe you're a hypocrite for putting it on your laptop then. Take it off your laptop at work. One more thing is, and I've said this a bunch about the Men of the Night's Watch, it's bullshit. It is absolutely bullshit.
You don't like that they keep their names.
I don't like that the Men of the Night's Watch keep their lord titles and yada, 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 and they're bullshit. You should be back to square 1-0.
Yeah.
Dirt in the mud and dude in the mud. And Jaime, once you said your deal, bam, gone. Move on, next, just like you were dead, because that's what it should have been. And that's messed up.
Yeah.
So let's get into Bronn. Bronn comes.
Well, there was one more point, though. Is just like, so even though like he did his job, just shut up and do your job was your point. But like even in modern military, you get
that's not quite my point, but okay.
Awards and medals and recognition, at least a little bit, for outstanding service. So
yeah, like at the very least, Tyrion should have got to walk in the throne room in that Sansa chapter with everybody else.
We're all in agreement there. So we can move on to Bronn.
And when you do well, you get promoted, just like everybody else did in this battle.
Not demoted, you mean?
Yeah.
Like Tyrion.
Not pretty much fired
from his post.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get the last word before we circle back on it. I guess I argue that Tywin is offering Tyrion like a decent reward, and Tyrion is being a bit peevish about it because of the family thing.
Well,
and again,
but that's
not without right. It's because his dad's a dickhead, and he's calling him on it for the first time.
But here's the thing: is that this station and land is not the land. He's already got land. He's already should have Castle Rock, which is his whole point.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's why he doesn't give a shit about this other house or this other station, because he should have this station.
Which rightfully is.
Yep. That's a good point. By Tywin basically saying, what do you want, a castle or lands? He's basically telling Tyrion, you don't have Castle Rock. I'll give you something else. Yeah.
Right.
So,
all right, Bronn comes back.
Tyrion's still in his bed, right? He's basically afraid that anyone that comes in is working for Cersei. He's convinced Cersei's behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Bronn shows up to...
dressed up a little bit differently.
Yeah, looking good. And he asked if Tyrion cut himself shaving. There's a lot of just like quick little Woody one-liners, and Tyrion's like, yeah, with a big-ass razor.
Yeah, I mean, this is their relationship hasn't changed, really, right?
Yeah, Bronn's funny as shit.
So he's got, what's his sigil?
The fucking flaming chain.
Yeah, green flaming chain on a gray back.
Pretty cool. Yeah. Pretty cool sigil.
Makes sense, right? Yeah.
Especially how he earned it,
once the story of the Blackwater gets out.
Yeah.
Because Bronn seems actually like a bit in the thick of it. He says it was fighting at the Winch Towers. He was in charge of getting the chain pulled up, basically, and he did. So, yeah, he pulled his weight in the battle big time. From a lowly sellsword that they basically just met in an inn when Tyrion was getting captured to one of the, like a general in the Battle of the Blackwater, yeah.
Yeah.
And now Knight.
He started as an enemy, essentially, right? Well, a sellsword enemy.
Yeah,
but...
basically on Catelyn's side, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Tywin decided to have him knighted, right, with a bunch of other people, but Tywin didn't actually do the knighting. So Bronn just talks about how long it took to get knighted, like it was a brutal ceremony. It was almost like college graduation.
And I think that was the Sansa chapter we saw. Like basically Sansa even says like it took all morning for them to come in and like knight people and and everything.
And then we've already known this part of it, but there's 3 Kingsguard in the city still.
Yep.
Manon's dead, and the Hound went craven.
Also, Tyrion here, he's like, when Bronn says like, "Oh yeah, your dad dubbed me. Like I was knighted by command of your father." And Tyrion thinks to himself like, "I said I'll knight, like you're gonna be knighted after the battle. Like, I promised you that.
He stole my glory.
All the rewards I was gonna give you."
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, just one of the
That's definitely a lot of what this chapter is like all the rug being pulled out from Tyrion.
Yeah.
So we also learned that Bywater, what's his first name?
Well, right here in my notes, I have that Tyrion thinks that, that's it. Yeah. But also I have my notes that Tyrion thinks that all this shit Tywin's doing, kicking Tyrion out of the Tower of the Hand, making sure that Bronn is knighted by him. Again, he didn't even do the knighting, but he's the one who gave the command. Tyrion thinks it's like a sign. He's like, oh, that's a sign for all to see, and this is too. And I'm like, is it really? Or is Tyrion, like, does anyone besides Tyrion give half a shit who commanded that Bronn got knighted? You know what I mean?
I think it's Tywin kind of proving points. So
maybe
I think
Bronn
coming in swinging his his member around.
I don't even know if Tywin cares about Bronn more so than he's taking the control of it. Like Bronn's just another person.
I'm just thinking like Tyrion here is thinking like, oh, Tywin's doing this shit to fuck with me. Is that in Tywin's head?
I don't think so.
Yeah, Tywin's not thinking about Tyrion when he's doing this shit. He's just like, I'm taking care of business now.
Yeah, but I think that's kind of his fucking. He's like he came in and just took over Tower of the Hand immediately, and then everything was his. And like,
he treats Tyrion like shit, but I don't think it's like on purpose. Like I'm going out of my way to make Tyrion look bad.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I just think back to the original orders was like, you go be hand until I get there. Right? That was kind of maybe not word for word, but all right, he's here. Like I'm hand now. Like you did what, and he kind of gets to it. Like you did what I asked you to do. Like congratulations. I'm here now. Like it's my turn.
That's true. I did forget that was kind of the original deal. He was hand regent essentially. So
and just Tyrion's like little joke on the knighting matter. He says, "I lose half my nose and you gain a knighthood. The gods have a deal to answer for." And then that's when they get into the dubbing and how everyone got knighted. So yeah, what's the rundown of the Kingsguard?
Amanda dead, Hound gone, Eris Oakheart.
We'll hear about him later.
Yeah, and Dorne.
He's with Marcella and Dorne. So that's 3. Jamie's the 4th missing one.
Osney. No. Osmond Kettleblack is one.
Yep. Maren Trant and Baelon Swan. Those are the 3 who are knighting people. And Jamie was the last one
who's missing.
We know he's like not in the city.
All right. So Bywater, we find out, is dead. He was killed by the people that left the wall when Joffrey was pulled off by the Kettleblacks.
Yeah, so Cersei sends the Kettle Blacks. Also, it's funny, at one point,
was it Kettle Back or Kettle Black? Kettle Back.
Kettle Black.
Black. Was it Black?
The nail. Yeah.
So we
Kettle
see
Black.
this in one of the Sansa chapters. Cersei sends Osfrid and Osney, right? The two that were basically doing nothing. Just they're chilling with Cersei.
Just sitting in the room, right?
Yeah, to go get Joffrey. And at one point, Bronn even says, like, yeah, those two were knighted too. Right? Tyrion's like, we were supposed to be paying for those guys. Like, Cersei was paying them, but we were paying them more. Dudes. And he's like, yeah, but they got knighted, so it's like they're off the table now, basically is what Bronn says. And he's like, they got knighted for something, I don't know. Like, no one saw them do anything in the battle, which we know they did nothing. They just sat next to Cersei the whole time and got knighted for that, right? So
yeah, well, I mean, that was pretty much all like they were Cersei's guard, I think, is why. And like, even though they didn't do anything, she felt like they did, you know, like they showed loyalty.
Yeah,
she has to fill those holes somehow, right?
Yeah.
So,
and it's just another breadcrumb. Like, hey, keep following me. So who's now in charge of the City Watch?
Adam Marbrand.
Adam.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Who is a Tywin guy?
Yeah. So Bywater, we kind of said it when Joffrey got called back. All the gold cloaks, like all the people who were defending the walls, also were like, "Fuck this! If the king's not here, we're out." And Bywater, who's in charge, was like, "No, fuck you guys. This is our job. Get back to the wall.
We need to stay here."
Yeah. And Bronn's like, he almost had him. Like he almost actually convinced him to go back, but someone put an arrow through his neck, and then he got pulled off his horse and killed.
Could have even been Osney or Osfrid, right?
Yeah, I guess.
I feel like it was a friendly fire, is the way it felt.
For sure, yeah. Like one of the people who just like, fuck this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Tyrion's like, was Joffrey actually in any danger? And Bronn says, no more than some and less than most. So, no, not really. So, yeah, we hear Adam Marbrand has taken over. We've seen this guy before, early Tyrion chapters when he was out at the Green Fork, like those battles. So he's one of Tywin's commanders who was basically in the tent with Tyrion back then.
Sitting at the table or whatever.
Yep. Tyrion thinks he's a man that people like to follow, like Jaime.
Just a good leader.
Yeah, this is one of the things he gives Tywin credit for, right?
Yeah.
He's like, this, even though he's an outsider, this is a good pick.
Yeah, because they would have expected the Gold Cloaks to be like promoted from within, like Bywater was. He was the commander of one of the gates when he sent Janis Flynn away.
Yeah.
And then we also hear about the Mountain Clansmen.
Yeah, we hear what happened to all Tyrion's other buddies. So, because basically he lost the Gold Cloaks, right? He had command of the Gold Cloaks with Jacelyn Bywater. Right. That's the point here. But Bywater's kind of like in his pocket.
He had more swords than Cersei probably, right?
Yeah.
So the Stone Crows are having too much fun out in the Kingswood.
Yeah.
The Burned Men took their swords and went home.
Yep. They looted all Tywin shit, right? Then they just pieced out.
Yeah. Black Ears, and that's another thing, right? Tyrion was going to give him the stuff, which was probably Tywin's anyway at the end of the day. But and then the Black Ears tried to come back, and they were not allowed
chased
back.
Off by Tywin's people, and the city people threw dung at him. Yeah. And Tyrion thinks they're angry because the Black Ears like were literally dying, like fighting and dying for the city. And then they get
now they don't even want him anymore. Kicked him out, ran him out.
Yeah. No longer Hand isn't in charge of the Watch, no more clansmen anymore. Tyrion's getting fucked up. His family members have taken all his claws out, which is cool, like, because he's a Lannister. Lion.
Good point. Good point.
So conversation then changes to Alayaya.
Yep. Kyle, I think you had actually, I remember when I was editing, I think you had actually been like, in the last Tyrion chapter, because he's had a lot of dreams about like his first whore, and he's having a lot of dreams about Shay, and you're like, what happened about Alayaya? She's like actually captured. Like, I don't think he mentions her one time in the last Tyrion chapter, so I think you had actually asked about it. Here we find out she didn't get treated the best.
Yeah, and it wasn't even Cersei though. We find out later, like she was let go.
Cersei was still afraid.
They whipped her. And, disgraced her completely.
Yep. They tied her to a post in the yard and scourged her, then shoved her out the gate naked and bloody.
Scourged?
I looked it up. It's public whipping. It's like whipping that's also meant to be like
shameful. Like on a post
shameful, exactly.
In front of the...
Disgraceful. Yeah. So exactly. And like he's like the first thing he thinks then is like, well, fuck that. Like now I got to whip Tommen, who I actually kind of like.
Yeah.
But I can't be making these threats and not coming through on him.
Yeah. And I think he even kind of shows his hand later on, right? When he was talking to Tywin, it was like, I wasn't actually going to hurt Tommen.
Well, does he say that? I'm not sure. Because here he thinks like when Bronn says like, you don't actually have Tommen anymore, Tyrion thinks like, oh, thank God. Which makes me think like, would you actually have whipped him if you did still have him?
That's what I'm still like. I think Tywin at the end, and we might even be a part of the conversation that we're about to read, but he's like, you were going to do that to your own family. And he was like, look, I wasn't actually going to do it, but it was like something like a threat with no something doesn't hold any water, but
he didn't want to do it originally, I think is what he was trying to say. Like when I made that threat, my plan wasn't to have to follow through on it because you, Dad, taught me that sometimes a threat is more important than actually doing it. But
you were the one who taught me that a threat is more telling than a blow.
I think he also kind of had to, because like he said here, he's like I can't be, you don't do it once. People are going to think, well, he didn't do it that time. Why is he going to do it now? And then you lose a lot of your power. So I don't know. I think he would have maybe reluctantly had it done.
Maybe. Yeah. So he learns that he doesn't have Tommen anyway, right? So the Kettle Blacks went to Rosby and got hold of Tommen. When they saw what's his name was dead, they didn't even put up a fight, right?
Yeah. Once Bywater was gone, they were like, there's.
All right,
we don't have any balls here anymore. So
because it was just some of Bywater's men who were holding Tommen at Rosby.
And that's when I have that Osney and Osford got knighted. I think they got knighted for bringing back Tommen. Yeah. So they did a little bit more than gotcha. Stand in the Maegor's Holdfast.
My notes say he was knighted after the battle.
Yeah, but it was here that he mentions it, but it was after the battle.
Gotcha.
Okay, never mind.
So Tyrion has a quote here. My hirelings betray me. My friends are scourged and shamed, and I lie here rotting, Tyrion thought. I thought I won the bloody battle. Is this what triumph tastes like? So it's like, everything just bad to worse.
Bittersweet.
Tyrion. Yep.
Everything went pretty much not according to plan, but like the plan he was hoping for, came out, and this is not what he envisioned a week or well, I guess it was like a month ago now, but
yeah. Just another baseball analogy. The game was tied when he got pulled from the game. They won it with the relievers.
Yeah.
He gets a no decision.
He kept it even. So they talk about Renly's ghost here. Tyrion asks if it's true that Stannis was put to rout by Renly's ghost.
And they're like, we saw fucking guys in a green suit is pretty much all you get out of this.
And they went nuts when he showed up.
Yeah, everybody was already Renly's man, so they were like, well, Renly's back, and they switched sides immediately. It didn't take much. So that was a smart play.
So just read that quote real quick.
Bronn smiled thinly. From the winch towers, all we saw was banners in the mud and men throwing down their spears to run. But there's hundreds in the pot shops and brothels who will tell you how they saw Lord Renly kill this one or that one. Most of Stannis' hosts had been Renly's to start, and they went right back over at the sight of him in that shiny green armor.
Yep, exactly. So that is the rumor going around.
Can you just imagine, like, fighting somebody, seeing somebody show up, and then fighting with them? Like, all right, wait, I'm on your side.
Well, just think about the position these guys were in, right? They were serving this lord. They wake up on the morning they're supposed to go to battle against Stannis.
Yeah.
And, like, in this confusion, they're like, the lord's dead. Like, the battle's not happening. Like, everyone stop. And then, like if you're just a normal soldier, right? You're not a lord. You're just, like, a normal guy. And you're
right,
like, okay,
you're following
all of a
somebody.
sudden, now we're in Stannis' camp, right? You don't give a fuck. Like, you're like kind of like what Jorah tells Dany, like the small folk. I think soldiers have a little more loyalty, right? But Jorah tells Dany early in book 1, like the small folk don't give a fuck who sits the Iron Throne. All they want is a summer that never ends and like peace, right? Or food in their belly. Exactly. Something like that. So it's kind of like soldiers have a little more loyalty, but it's like the same thing. Like these soldiers, they're in one camp this day. Now they're at Stannis' for 2 months. Now they're in the middle of battle, and the Lord who was just like missing on the morning of battle is actually back when they actually show. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like, all right, wait, we're actually loyal to this person. Like, I'm back.
Yeah, but fuck it. Yeah, we're on his side now.
Like, what if you were like, in what's it called when like two swords
clashed? Yeah, I don't know.
They clash, or I'm just thinking
saber
of
lock in Star Wars.
Saber lock, and you just like look and you're like, holy shit! And you're like. What did that conversation go like? No, I'm going to fight with you. I'm going to fight with you now.
Yeah, well, yeah. Who do you start fighting, right? Like it's like me and you are shoulder to shoulder.
Chaos.
How do you know if the Stannis man that was Renly's is switching or not?
Exactly. They were both from the red. Me and you are both like just random red wine soldiers, right? And now we see Renly. Do we just like turn and start fighting each other because like, are you for Renly? Are you for? You know what I mean? Like it would be super confusing, which is kind of what Bronn says. Like banners were just getting thrown down. No one knew what the fuck was going on.
Everybody's running. I was going to say, this kind of reminds me of the whole Theon and Reek coming back thing, right? Where like they were like, oh, you guys are here to help. And then it just fucks everybody.
Exactly, yeah.
It's not quite the same, but it's a similar experience.
Little trickery, yep. Yeah, so Tyrion thinks that after all his planning and after him going out leading in the battle, getting his face cut in half, somehow he gets eclipsed by a dead man. So again, Tyrion is just like, oh, woe is me, woe is me, woe is me. And yeah, a lot of shit, like we said, shit is going bad for Tyrion. But in his head, like, I don't know. I don't think he has the best mindset about this. The whole time it's just like, oh, I'm getting the short end of the stick. I'm getting the short end of the stick, which is true. But like, what are you going to do? Like, just bitching about it.
He's lived his entire life getting smashed.
He doesn't have a nose right now, so.
I know. Like, give the guy, like, he's in the, if there's anywhere ever time to like feel pity for yourself, this is the moment. I get it. I'm just pointing it out. Like, it is a little heavy by Tyrion.
And then he climbs out of it. I feel like he climbs out of it a little bit. He's like, all right, I need to get out of bed.
Yeah, he does.
Well, to finish my thought, he spent his entire life getting smashed. This is literally his greatest achievement, and nobody gives a shit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Agreed.
that's true.
So I think that's where he's coming from, at least.
Agreed. We hear that Stannis escaped. The Lyseni ships that didn't get caught in the bay were able to come right up to the chain, pick him up, and taxi his ass out of there.
Yep.
And I don't know if it's a spoiler, but we also find out that they came in time to get Davos at the end of this chapter.
Next chapter is Davos, yes. So Davos is alive.
So
he was left hanging at the end of I guess left sinking at the end of book 2.
Yeah. I was hoping he was alive, and then I saw Davos.
I didn't even realize that he was the next chapter.
Yep.
Yeah. I usually don't. I mean, I saw it at the end of this.
It's impossible when it ends like that.
So then they start talking about Robb Stark. Bronn says there's news of some Northmen going to Duskendale. They talk about that a little later with Tywin, so we'll get that then. I have a little map. Bronn says he was thinking about joining though, because Tywin's sending Randall Tarley to take care of it. So Sam's daddy, I always like this little connection. Send Sam's daddy out to take care of it. Bronn's like, I might go with him. He's a good soldier, and he basically lets us loot anything we want. So,
which is kind of funny, right? Because Tarley, Sam, and Jon are like best friends.
Yep.
Yeah.
And now here his brother is about to fight his dad, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fight his best friend's dad.
Well, we heard about like Sam's dad from Sam's point of view, right? What do you remember about that? Yeah, he's a prick. He basically told Sam like, "You're not man enough to get to the wall." Yeah.
Yeah.
This
is the only way. Yeah.
This is what.
It's kind of what.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's like.
You go ahead.
It's what Tywin basically should have said to Tyrion. Like,
Yeah,
I'm never going to give this to you. Like, go to the wall or I'm going to kill you in the hunting accident.
Exactly, yeah.
Tarley was just man enough to say it to him early
Because
on.
Tarley's trying to skip over this son to the next son. That's why I want to inherit my shit. Exactly. And this is how he figures out to make it happen. Yep.
You know what else is kind of weird? Like, I don't know, maybe Tywin just like really loved his wife. It's not unheard of for that person to remarry. Like if he
Tywin?
followed.
Oh yeah, to make another heir.
Make another heir.
Gotcha. Yeah.
If Jaime was truly gonna be a Kingsguardman and he hated Tyrion, he really only had one choice. Or just tell Tyrion the same threat and then give it to like a cousin. But I'm sure he doesn't want to do that. He wants his own blood there. But
yeah.
Tyrion's like, Bronn, you're not leaving. You're my.
Yeah,
you're my guard. You're with me.
You're my last. Yeah.
You're my guy.
You're it, man. Yeah. Like, do you not like gold anymore? He's like, no, I do. I'm gonna stick around.
All right, fine, I'll stay.
He's like, yeah, you're the captain of the Hand's guard. He's like, yeah, you're not the Hand anymore. And Tywin's got his own fucking guard. He doesn't need me.
But Tyrion has a big job for him.
Yeah. Tyrion's like, what about the other sellswords? Like, you were hired sellswords me second half of book 2. And he's like, yeah, Kevin just paid him all and told him to get the fuck out. Kevin, yeah. Tywin's brother.
Shout out, bro.
So yeah, he says, this is where Tyrion says he wants to know more about Mand and Moore, right? He tells Bronn this, and he's like, he's dead. What do you want to know? And he's like, he's like touching his scar. Earlier he said like Cersei was trying to kill me, and he thinks to himself like, I shouldn't have said that. He's like kind of giving hints to what's happening. Again, it's Bronn, who cares, but he was more afraid of like, he says like, are there rats or spiders in the walls?
Spiders, little birds. Yep. I thought it was kind of funny that, pulled all them. But yeah, exactly. Like this room could be bugged, essentially. Not quite in the modern sense, but
yeah, bugged with spies.
People are listening. Yeah.
So Bronn says that he looks creepy. He's got a white cloak and eyes like a fish. What more do you want to know? And Tyrion's like, I want to know everything about this guy.
Tell me more.
And he thinks to himself that he really wants proof that Mandan is Cersei's, but he doesn't want to say that out loud. And this is the spiders in the walls thing.
I mean, how is he going to figure that out now? Like Cersei just admit to it? The guy's dead. You know, is there a record? Does he keep a diary of who's paying him what?
Yeah, like you find like a bag of gold in his room that says like a tag from Cersei to Mandan on it.
Yeah. Please kill Tyrion.
Yeah, exactly.
So he decides then he's going to get up and also asks if Marjorie Tyrell has made it into the city yet.
Yeah, he says it's time for him to be seen, and Bronn says, such a pretty sight. What's half a nose on a face like mine, mocked Tyrion.
Good line. And then we learn that everybody is in love with Marjorie already.
Even though she's not here. Yep.
She's not even there yet, but they just...
Well, the Tyrells are here.
All the Tyrells.
Throwing coin around. They're the saviors of the city.
Well, they're throwing food around. They're shipping up wains of bread. Hundreds of carts of bread a day, just giving it away for free in the name of Marjorie. So, and we know all these people were starving. Joffrey was like shooting them with arrows and telling them to eat themselves. And Marjorie just giving away bread. So
yeah, she's pretty liked.
Yeah. So Bronn says everyone's like going around buying none of the Tyrell. If you have a rose on your chest, you're drinking for free, and all the wives, maidens, and whores are giving up their virtue. And Tyrion, again, this is one of those like, oh, woe is me. They spit on him and buy drinks for the Tyrells. Again, he did help out, but bad mindset by Tyrion.
I see. I'm complete opposite from you on this.
We don't have to keep having the conversation, but
I know. But I think like he's gotten stepped on.
I was going to keep pointing out those quotes that,
yeah. So he yells for Pod to come in and get him dressed. It takes both Pod and Brown, and I guess whatever strength Tyrion has to get him dressed. And we find out that the nose injury is not even the worst one.
Read that quote.
Hideous though his face might be, the worst of his wounds was the one at the juncture of shoulder and arm, where his own mail had been driven back into his armpit by an arrow. Pus and blood still seeped from the discolored flesh whenever Maester Franken changed his dressing, and any movements in a stab of agony through him.
Yep. So he's fucked up. Also, quick reminder, he got fucked up at the Green Fork. He mentioned it a few times. He wasn't really ever doing anything athletic in the second book.
He got hit with a mace in the elbow, right?
In the elbow, exactly. Yep. I guess I don't mention if this is the same side or not, but his shoulder's fucked up and it's gross. Like, how do they clean that in the olden days? Like, wouldn't you get metal rings stuck inside?
That's what I was gonna say. Is like a puncture wound is generally like the worst kind of wound because it just jams so much stuff so deep into you. Because like you said, you can't even clean it out.
It'd probably be better to get shot by an arrow not wearing mail, right? Because then you just push it through, snap it off on the other side, pull it out. We talked about this in the Jaime chapter, that getting shot with an arrow is basically like nothing.
But what if pushing it through under his armpit meant like pushing it through his organs in the inside?
Through an artery?
Yeah, so like, I mean, at the same time, like I think the mail probably slowed it down, right?
You've played Far Cry, Kyle. You know the Far Cry games, how like when you heal yourself, there's one where you like get like a branch through the arm, right? And all you do is like pull the branch through your arm and like wrap some gauze around it and you're good to go.
That's all you need.
That's basically like getting shot by an arrow, yeah.
Gauze heals everything.
That easy, yeah.
So yeah, he's fucked up. He gets up. He's not dressed to the nines, right? He's wearing like a robe.
Yeah. Well, he had asked for all his nice stuff, and then like by the end of it, he's like, "Yeah, well, I'm wearing a bedrobe that's real loose, and like this is all we could fucking get on."
Throw this shit over top of me and let me walk up these stairs.
Yeah. So they see a servant girl. He thinks that she says that she's thinking to herself that the dwarf has risen from the dead and he's uglier than before. When they get to the bottom, they see Meryn Trant on the drawbridge. They command him to lower the bridge, and he's like, the queen commanded for the bridge to stay up all night. So right here, Tyrion is leaving Maegor's. I was confused here. I thought he was going into Maegor's. He's leaving Maegor's to go to the Tower of the Hand, which I guess doesn't really matter.
On the outside.
Yeah, the Tower of the Hand isn't inside Maegor's. I guess I never really realized that before. Yeah, so he's going out. He sees him. He says, no, the queen commanded it to be down. Tyrion's like, yeah, well, I'm going to see Tywin. And then he's like, okay, lowers the thing. And the point of this is Tyrion's like, yeah, my dad, you basically just drop my dad's name and you get whatever you want.
But nobody listens to him anymore.
My dad's a lawyer, Meryn.
To go back to your same argument, the dad owns a dealership.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like kind of the same thing though. Like he held no sway anymore. He had to fucking use his dad's name. Yeah. And this is kind of back to what you were saying earlier.
Because before the King's Guard, they didn't always agree. Like I think when Tyrion first shows up, first chapter, Clash of Kings, there's like a council room going on, and Mandon is actually on the door, and Tyrion's like, "Let me in," and Mandon's like, "Nah," and he's like, "Do you know Sir Varys Egan? Bronn just killed his ass when I was in the Vale. Let me in," and he's like, "Okay, fine." And he lets him in.
Is that when he found out about what's his name now? I can't think of the other Lannister kid.
Lancel. Yeah, him and Cersei had this big conversation after that, I think.
I thought that was when he okay.
They're talking about like the wine. I think he talks about like
Robert's
he was in there
like singing for her or something.
Oh,
no,
was
why man.
That was a little bit later, yeah. But
anyway.
The point is like the Kingsguard never really respected Tyrion, but before he had the muscle to back it up. But like we just talked about, he still has brawn, but he doesn't have Shagga or Chella or Timid or any of those guys, gold cloaks anymore. Yeah. Exactly. So, but he gets him to drop it. Osmond's on the other side. He's asking if Tyrion's feeling any better, and Tyrion's like, yeah, I can't wait for the next battle. Let's go.
And then he also sees a bunch of Highgarden tents out and about.
Yeah, so there's no room. Max capacity in the Red Keep.
It doesn't even set like. Is there yards and shit inside of these castles? I mean, I guess enough for them to pitch a tent.
That's what I was confused. That's why he's leaving Magor's, right, and going into the bigger Red Keep where I guess like the yard is where they train and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which I guess is where he sees these tents.
I mean, there's got to be like open space. Yeah.
Yeah. So, max capacity, basically, we hear more about that when he goes to meet Tywin. He has to get carried up these steps because he's like, fuck it, there's no way. Like, I'm not making it.
Well, before that, too, I just want to say, Pod's like, they're all here for the king's wedding, and Tyrion's like, I can't wait to attend. That's going to be that's a wedding I'm going to.
Yeah, he talks a little bit more about the wedding with Tywin, too.
Yeah. So, so he ends up running into Marben, right? Does he get up the stairs already? Is this when he struggles, he gets carried?
Yeah, he has to get carried. Yeah, you're right. I skipped over some notes I have. He thinks at the wedding, it's less likely for someone to cut off your nose.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he goes to the Tower of the Hand, runs into Marbrand. Does he run into Marbrand at the bottom?
No, at the top. It doesn't matter. Like, I think
it's like halfway.
Yeah.
I don't think he's being carried when he sees him.
He's walking at the point where he meets Marbrand, which is lucky. Sure? I think so, because he doesn't want to be embarrassed.
I don't think so.
And Marbrand says it's good to see him on his feet.
I know, but then he says, after that, I'm going to walk the rest of the way because I can't be carried in.
Oh, is that after that? Okay, maybe you're right. I don't have the actual text up. I just put my notes.
There's a point where it says he definitely walks the rest of the way. But
it's after that. He says the way was up more steps, but this time he climbed under his own power. It's under the bottom of 60.
I think he gets Bronn to carry him up before he sees the tents. My notes say, however, when they got to the Stormfence steps, he wouldn't be able to climb. He asked Bronn to carry him, and then the outer ward was crowded with tents, which makes me think that by that time they're walking.
Maybe they got up the steps or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, not important.
Doesn't matter. He sees Marbrand.
He does say on your feet.
Yeah.
So I was kind of confused there too. So,
but Marbrand says good to see him. And he's like, I'd heard some rumors, and Tyrion cuts him off and says of news of a small grave being dug. So basically, like, the rumors of Tyrion's dead is like, I just love Tyrion. It makes me laugh.
You do love Tyrion.
I thought the next thing that Marbrand said was kind of counter to itself almost. I can't think of the word I'm looking for right now, but he says that death and desertion has only left him with 4,400 people, but then he's like, but this is way too many people to pay. But it sounds like he wants more people, but he doesn't have money to pay.
I kind of got the point that he just didn't want that many in general. That he's like, yeah, there's death and desertion. I have this many.
He says, both, I fear, death and desertion have left me with some 4,400, which to me makes it sound like he's upset that he only has 4,400. You're right, he doesn't say only.
I just took it as like, it's too many. Because when he says both, he says, is it should I congratulate you or give you condolences? And he's like, both.
I think it might be double-sided. Like, I don't have enough men to do what I need to do, but we also don't have enough money to pay the guys that we do have, so...
Yeah, and that was kind of how I read it, but it was just the way he said it. It was weird.
He's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Because a second later, he says, like, I want to let some go, but Cersei won't let me fire any. Which just makes me think, like, I just think, like, there's too many, right? Because didn't we hear beforehand that they were just, like, letting anybody in? Like, before the battle, Tyrion thinks that there was, like, 1,800 that were, like, brought in by Robert. But then, like, Cersei was just afraid and basically letting anybody in. And people were just joining left and right because they got food. You got food if you join the Gold Cloaks.
Exactly.
I think he's saying, I want to get these people out of here because, A, they're not good.
There's a bunch of untrained,
mouths, But Cersei won't let me. It's how I took it.
But to the point, like, there's so many people, like, how many people do you actually need to properly
and that's what he's saying.
City?
We don't need this many, and we're paying them, and Cersei won't let me fire them.
I don't know if he's saying that. I'm saying he wants more men, capable men, but he wants to be able to pay them. They can't pay them, so...
Well, what Tyrion thinks is we're out of danger. He's like, Cersei, why are you so nervous? Like, the battle's over.
Right. But, I mean, obviously, Marbrand's kind of worried about something. I feel like he wants more men, but he can't pay them. So he just doesn't know what to do.
Well, that's what I was going to say. With this wedding coming up, too, the influx of just people in the city, like, you would want more security, right?
So, moving on from Marbrand, he also says, Marbrand also tells him that they can't find Tyrek Lannister.
Which we knew.
And Bronn's like, he's fucking dead.
How do we know that? I forget about this by now. I'm sorry.
It was just a small point that, like, after the Marcella gets sent off the door and there was the riot, like, there was like, hey, all this shit went down. The High Septon died. Preston died. No one can find Tyrek. And Tyrion's like, hey, Varys, go take care of this. Bronn, go take care of this. And they basically both come back and say, nothing. No body, no word.
He's eaten.
Yeah. So Marbrand's basically saying like, yeah, Tywin hasn't forgot that his like nephew or whatever is gone. We want him back.
He's feeding worms.
That's what Bronn says exactly.
Yeah.
So Tyrion gets inside, gets left alone with Papa.
Yeah, well, so just to close that, Adam basically says like, yeah, I don't care, Bronn. Tywin
we're gonna
wants to
fight
know if he's feeding worms. Yeah, like he cares about his blood. Like he doesn't take no slice for the Lannister name.
But not Tyrion so much. He cares more about Tyrek.
Not the monster that killed his wife.
He does go to war when Tyrion gets captured by Catelyn in Book 1, though. Like, that's
True.
Tyrion getting captured, and that's like...
Yeah, true.
So, Tyrion-Tywin meeting, awesome. Great part of the chapter.
Yeah, it's cool. So, the first thing he finds out is that the date is set for the wedding. It's first day of the new year. It's going to be a new time for the realm.
New century.
Yep.
And it's just a lot of back and forth. I didn't take a lot of notes now, so like if you have certain japes, but basically like Tyrion just like blah blah blah, and Tywin's like, shut the fuck up. Like, what are you here to do? Like, I have letters to write. So I have nothing before he has letters to write.
Yeah, he's in general, he's like just making jokes like he's like, oh, I like your chambers. It's like, but he's thinking to himself like, they are my
nice
chambers.
Necklace,
like, yeah, like nice necklace, like all the shit that used to be mine. He's like, somebody put me in a dank cell in Maegor's. Like, who could have done that? Like, knowing that Tywin knew all of this shit.
Like he said earlier, Cersei's treating me like a mushroom, keeping me in the dark and feeding me shit.
Yeah, he's being a little, he's being
funny.
like sarcastic, right? Like Tyrion is.
Oh yeah, for sure. He's landing on thick.
I just want to read this quote of Tywin. The Lord of Castle Rock was as lean as a man of 20 years younger, even handsome in his austere way. Stiff, bold whiskers covered his cheeks, framing a stern face, a bald head, a hard mouth. About his throat he wore a chain of golden hands, the fingers of each clasping the wrists of the next. So,
And that's a handsome chain.
nice chain. Yep, that's what Tyrion says. Again, just making fun of him. And basically we get to him talking about the wedding, like Jeff was saying, and when he says like, oh, it'll be the first day of the new year. It'll be the day of the first day of a new century as well, 300, and it'll be the mark of a new era. And Tyrion thinks a Lannister era, right? So I mean, Joffrey is pure as Lannister as it gets, right? Double Lannister, so
100% Lannister.
Yeah.
I don't know if this fits the podcast, but I was watching something of inbred West Virginian family. I forget their names. The Whitakers or something.
Yeah. I've heard of them.
Oh man,
they look
Dude,
fucked
they're
up.
like weird looking.
Yeah, but so like they're not sure if there's water issues or something else that contributed to it, but they are like there's like 3 of them that can barely talk and stuff. It's very sad.
Yeah, it is sad. And there's like 20 of them, isn't there? Like
there were a bunch of them for sure. I don't know. It was weird. Like the parents were like double first cousins. It was like brother and sister, or 2 brothers married 2 sisters, and then those kids married each other or something. It was really
Well, there's like memes that go on Reddit, like in some of like the Game of Thrones or Song of Ice and Fire Reddit sometimes of like the Habsburgs, I think, are like a family that ruled England. They're like a famous like royal family, but they were like they pulled some Targaryen, like let's keep the family inbred. Like
yeah, I mean it's pretty popular in those times.
Like you can just like if you look up just pictures of like their faces or like and stuff like that, like they don't look like you can tell there's something like not normal. Like
they're not going to be Joffrey pretty, right?
Well, exactly. That's what they're saying. It's like what Daenerys looks like in the show, and it's Amelia Clarke, and it's like what Daenerys like should look like, and it's one of the Habsburgs. And it's like holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like even like King Tut was, I'm pretty sure he was inbred too, and like AI makeup of what King Tut looked like, he was pretty fucked up.
Yeah. So the whole gist of basically the conversation up to this point, Tywin calls Tyrion out. He says, "Did you come here just to complain of your bedchamber and make your lame japes? I have important letters to finish." And Tyrion says, "Important, to be sure." And Tywin says, "Some battles are won with swords and spears, others with quills and ravens. Spare me these coy reproaches, Tyrion." So Tywin's not amused by Tyrion's like jokes and just like complaints.
Yeah, get on with it. What are you doing here?
And Tyrion's basically like, "Well, I think he says like you never cared about me, like you never showed up, like." And he's like, I visited you as much as the maester would allow, until you were until you were in the clear. You weren't going to die anymore. Then fuck it, you're on your own.
I will give you some credit. That wound on your face is pretty fucking ghastly.
Yeah. He asks why he dismissed Balabar, the maester, and Tyrion says, well, Maester Franken is less inclined to keep me insensate. And Tywin explains where Balabar came from. So he's one of the red wine maesters, and he's just known for being like a better healer than most maesters, it seems like. He's like, it was very kind of Cersei to send him to you. She feared for your life. And Tyrion thinks she feared I might keep my life. he thinks of himself that. He doesn't say that, right?
Yeah, he doesn't give any idea that Cersei sent Mandan to kill him.
Yeah, again, he just makes a joke. He's like, oh, that must be why she never left my bedside.
Yeah.
Right, like, that's why, she liked me so much, that's why she never left me. He's like, don't be impertinent. Cersei's planning a wedding. I'm in the middle of a war. You've been out of danger for a fortnight. Like, what do you want from us? Like, quit being so needy.
Yeah. So, we just learn again that Charlie's going to meet Robb at Duskendale.
A little before that, I think we kind of covered a little bit of this earlier at the beginning of the podcast, but there's a part here where Tyrion says, like, or Tywin's like, what you said, his wound is ghastly enough, but then the next thing, he's like, what madness possessed you to join the fight, to like lead the sortie? And Tyrion says, madness, he doesn't say this exactly, but like madness, if Jaime would have done it, you would have called it valor. The exact same thing. And Tyrion has a great point here. He's like, Jaime would not have been dumb enough to take his helmet off in the middle of a battle. I don't have the quote, but I'm pretty sure Tyrion took his helmet off like he was in the river and it was like drowning him and he had to take it off to like get water out of it. I think is like right before Mandan hit him.
I thought it fell off, but I don't remember.
I think he had to take it off to get water out. Like he was like hanging off the boat, took it off. I don't remember exactly, but he's like, well, I hope that Tywin's basically like, I hope the man who killed you is dead. And Tyrion's like, I hope you killed him. And he's like, oh, he's dead enough. And he thinks
the man who cut you.
The man who cut you.
He tried to kill him.
Pod did it, but he's dead.
Yeah, Pod. He doesn't say this. He's like, oh, he's dead enough. And Tyrion thinks that a dead enemy is a joy forever.
This is also where I saw a George typo in my book.
What?
Here. He calls him Sir Madden.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow. Where at?
Page
62. Oh, the wretch is dead enough, and it says Sir Madden.
The Project Payne who'd killed Sir Mandan?
Yeah, mine says Sir Madden. Madon.
Mine has Mandan.
Mine's Mandan.
Damn.
Well, they fixed it.
Cheap ass book.
Where is it?
I believe you.
What do you mean cheap ass book? It's like the same one as Jeff.
Who's this?
Oh, it does say Madden. Damn. Figured out.
Not important. It was. I figured it out after.
Bantam Books better get on their shit. Come on, how you let that slip?
You can't be messing up names like that in George R. Martin books. Like when there's 1,000 characters, there could be a Madden somewhere.
Yeah.
Nelson's notes are now ruined.
I'd be going crazy if that was my book. I'd be like, who the fuck is this guy?
Who the fuck's Madden? Who's Madden? We have to start all over.
Yeah.
Chapter 1, prologue.
Exactly. So he thinks that Mandamore wasn't actually, because he says that a dead enemy is a joy forever, but he thinks to himself that Manda wasn't actually an enemy, just a cat's paw, and I think I know the cat. And he's like, should I say it to Tywin? Should I like basically call Cersei out on this? Like, he would never buy it.
Yeah, he needs proof for sure.
Yeah. So he's like, why are you even here? Shouldn't you be out fighting someone? And Tywin basically says, until the Red Wine fleet gets here, we can't do shit about Dragonstone, which is where Stannis is. But his sun's set on the Blackwater anyway. Like, he's not a threat. As for Robb, this is where we get to what you were saying, Jeff, Duskendale. Yep. We hear that he's got some Northmen going to Duskendale. Helman Tallheart, Robert Glover are going to Duskendale. And he has sent Tarly to meet them and Gregor to go up the King's Road to kind of stop their retreat.
So this is going to make me sound dumb. What's the hound's first name? I can't think of it.
Sandor.
I did know that. Okay. That was all.
So I sent you guys the map. I emailed you guys the map. This is where you might want to look at it because it kind of matters where people are at. Not matters, but.
Well, and I was just trying to look at it in the book, so this will be helpful.
The map.
So I will say, while you guys are pulling that up, I went back and got the quote from what Arya heard about this in the last chapter of Clash of Kings. So here's my notes from the last one. It's not the exact quote. Rue says he's going to send a letter back. This is when he gets a letter from his wife. Arya reads it or somebody reads it. He's not going to send it back, but he's going to send it to Helman Tallheart. Arya knew that they had gotten word from Helman 2 days ago he had taken Castle Derry after the Lannister garrison surrendered after a short siege. In the letter, Roose commands him to put the men to the sword and Castle to the torch by the command of the king. Then he is to join with Robert Glover and go east to Duskendale. Those are rich lands and untouched by war. Roose says that Glover has lost a castle and Tallheart has lost a son, and they can take their vengeance on Duskendale. So that's why on this map that I sent you guys, Castle Derry is marked, because that's kind of where they're going from. So the Northmen are going from Castle Derry to Duskendale, which is on the coast there in the bottom right. Seems like Tywin from King's Landing is going to send out Randall to, I guess, go straight to Duskendale.
But he says, where's Robb? Isn't Robb?
Robb's still in the west.
It's not Robb, it's Robb's men.
No, it's Roose. Well, not Roose.
Helman Tallheart and Robert Glover.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's going to send the mountain up the King's Road and
cut off the retreat.
Randall to Duskendale. Exactly. So then they're basically going to be stuck near the Antlers, I guess. Like on this map, right? The Antlers is where theoretically Helman Tallheart is going to be. Antlers Maidenpool area would be trapped.
Okay.
So
thanks for the map.
Tyrion's like, that doesn't really make sense. I don't know why they would risk that. Like, what's the point of taking Duskendale? And Tywin's like, don't worry about it. I got it covered. I got the war stuff covered.
Get back to your sick bed.
You don't look good.
Has the wolf made a mistake? His first mistake.
That's what Tyrion's thinking. Yep.
Yep.
So Tywin's like, yeah, you don't look good. Get back to your sick bed, like Jeff said.
And then it goes on to asking what Littlefinger got.
Oh, yeah. He's like, go back to your bed unless you have something you want. And Tyrion's throat gets tight a little bit. He's like, I guess at the idea of what he wants, and we come back later because that's what Tyrion, he actually says.
I forget what he was actually. I didn't remember that he dropped like this big of an ask on him, but
this is where it comes out, the Casterly Rock stuff. Yeah.
So you're right, but before they get to that, they talk about Peter, and he's like, Littlefinger got Harrenhal, and again, this is just more of like other people are getting rewarded for shit that Tyrion was behind. Tyrion was the one that thought up this marriage in that council chamber, and now Littlefinger's getting Harrenhal for it, like the biggest castle in the realm, basically.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know how much Tywin believes it. Tywin says that it's basically like
empty
worthless right now because they don't even hold it. Yep. But I'm assuming that Tywin thinks that at one point they're going to win the war.
Exactly.
Right?
Like, in the long run, yeah.
So at some point he's going to actually have a castle. But
also Tyrion thinks there's more to that though, right? Like he's like, Littlefinger knows that it's not theirs currently, and like, but he still wants it. So there's something behind. Like he wouldn't do something
exactly
in the hopes of something in the future. He has something scheming already. Yeah. What it is, I don't know.
All right, where are we at, Nelly? Pull us back in.
So we're about to have a quote. Tywin sees what this is my notes. Besides that, Tywin had mentioned paying debts. Tywin sees what this means and asks what Tyrion wants. Lands, castles, some office. A little bloody gratitude would make a nice start.
Lord Tywin stared at him unblinking.
Mummers and monkeys require applause. So did Ares, for that matter. You did as you were commanded, and I am sure it was to the best of your ability. No one denies the part you played.
The part I played?
What nostrils Tyrion had left must surely have flared.
I saved your bloody city, it seems to me.
Most people seem to feel that it was my attack on Lord Stannis' flank that turned the tide of battle. Lords Tyrell, Rowan, Redwine, and Tarley fought nobly as well, and I'm told it was your sister Cersei who set the pyromancers to making the wildfire that destroyed the Baratheon fleet.
Well, all I did was to get my nose hairs trimmed. Is that it?
Tyrion could not keep the bitterness out of his voice.
Your chain was a clever stroke, and crucial to our victory. Is that what you wanted to hear?
All right, I just had it there. Now we get into like Dorne stuff. Yeah, it'll go for a while.
We learned that Marcella made it safe to Dorne. Aerys Oakheart is with her.
Yep.
Which we kind of spoiled. Not a spoiler, but I said it earlier. And she is, I said love. I know it's another word, but she really likes Princess Arianne.
Enchanted.
Yeah.
And Trystane is seemingly in love with Marcella.
Yeah.
So might actually work.
And he mislikes giving them a hostage. Like he's like, we had to give them so much for this.
Yeah, and I don't remember exactly what the offer was, but they kind of go over it here, so I take them at their word. I didn't go back and look it up. But Tyrion says, we offered them a council seat, right, to the Lord of Lord Martell. So when he comes, we'll basically have a hostage too, unless he comes with like a whole army, right? Because when Ned came, again, he was taking the hand, which is not the same as a normal council, but he brought some people, but not enough to like stop the gold.
Not enough a war.
Yeah. So they're talking about the offer. He offers him the council seat, right? And he's like, if he comes without an army, then we have a hostage too. And Ty was like, well, that's not all you promised him. You also promised him vengeance. Tyrion's like justice, not vengeance. So what are they talking about here, Kyle?
I don't remember, man. I'm sorry.
I'll fill him in.
Go ahead.
So this goes back to the sacking of King's Landing, and Sir Gregor was sent seemingly by Tywin to...
Doran's sister was married to Rhaegar. She was Rhaegar's wife.
And Sir Gregor smashed the baby's skull against the wall and raped and killed.
So Doran's niece and nephew.
Okay. I mean, I knew he mentions Gregor here. Or have you grown so fond of Gregor that you can't bear to part with him or whatever?
Yeah.
And I mean, I figured it was something like that. I forgot that it was his baby or whatever that got smashed.
They never really, they might not, I'm sure they probably talked about it more like blatantly than here, but they might not have ever like super called it out. But I think we have all the information needed at this point that like there's the relation there. Mm-hmm. Like bad shit happened to their family when King's Landing got sacked.
Yeah. So, I mean, he pretty much says, yeah, you can kill the mountain, right?
Well, I was not happy.
That was Tyrion's deal, right?
Yeah,
I know,
exactly.
But that was Tyrion's deal. You can come here and you can kill the mountain.
Yeah, he's yours. And Tywin seems like, I don't like that. I think either way, Tyrion says justice, Tywin says vengeance. Tywin says it doesn't matter what you call it. They want someone dead.
And Sir Gregor has his uses.
And he also says the Hound had his uses too, but he's gone out.
I mean, the Hound did have his uses. You know?
He's like, you already know this, Tyrion. Look at who you got following you around. You got Bronn, you got the clansmen. You know this. Yeah. You need people to do the dirty work.
It's good to have some people that people were scared of, right?
Yeah.
If not like actually good at fighting, but like you just some weirdo looking people too. Like Gregor obviously turns heads just because of his size. Like before he even chops people in half. You know,
But at the same time, he's replaceable. There's other awful people around that will do your dirty work, man. Like just look around the city, go to the woods. He's like, everybody's dying anyway. Like what's one more death? Like,
yeah, that's what Tyrion says to Tywin. Like the woods are full of beasts, and Tywin's like, another dog might serve. I'll think on it. So then he goes to dismiss Tyrion, and he's like, I got important. Tyrion's like, oh yeah, you got important letters. I forgot. And Tyrion stands and he's dizzy and he takes a step towards the door. Then this is where I got the quote.
Later, he would reflect that he should have taken a second and then a third. Instead, he turned.
What do I want, you ask? I'll tell you what I want. I want what is mine by rights. I want Casterly Rock.
His father's mouth grew hard.
Your brother's birthright?
The knights of the Kingsguard are forbidden to marry, to father's children, and to hold lands. You know this as well as I. The day Jaime put on that white cloak, he gave up his claim to Casterly Rock, but never once have you acknowledged it. It's past time. I want you to stand up before the realm and proclaim that I am your son and your lawful heir.
Lord Tywin's eyes were a pale green flecked with gold, as luminous as they were merciless.
Casterly Rock,
he declared in a flat, cold, dead tone. And then...
Never.
The word hung between them, huge, sharp, poisoned. I knew the answer before I asked, Tyrion said. 18 years since Jaime joined the Kingsguard, and I never once raised the issue. I must have known. I must always have known.
Why?
He made himself ask, though he knew he would rue the question.
You ask that? You who killed your mother to come into the world. You are an ill-made, devious, disobedient, spiteful little creature full of envy, lust, and low cunning. Men's laws give you the right to bear my name and display my colors, since I cannot prove that you are not mine. To teach me humility, the gods have condemned me to watch you waddle about wearing that proud lion that was my father's sigil and his father's before him. But neither gods nor men shall ever compel me to let you turn Casterly Rock into your whorehouse.
My whorehouse?
The dawn broke. Tyrion understood all at once where this bile had come from. He ground his teeth together and said,
Cersei told you about Alayaya.
Is that her name? I confess I cannot remember the names of all your whores. Who was the one you married as a boy?
Tysha.
He spat out the answer, defiant.
And that camp follower you on the Green Fork.
Why do you care?
He asked, unwilling even to speak Shay's name in his presence.
I don't. No more than I care if they live or die.
It was you who had Yaya whipped.
It was not a question.
Your sister told me of your threats against my grandsons.
Lord Tywin's voice was colder than ice.
Did she lie?
Tyrion would not deny it.
I made threats, yes, to keep Alayaya safe, so the Kettle Blacks would not misuse her.
To save a whore's virtue, you threatened your own house, your own kin. Is that the way of it?
You were the one who taught me that a good threat is often more telling than a blow. Not that Joffrey hasn't tempted me so a few hundred times. If you're so anxious to whip people, start with him. But Tommen, why would I harm Tommen? He's a good lad, in my own blood.
As was your mother.
Lord Tywin rose abruptly to tower over his dwarf son.
Go back to your bed, Tyrion, and speak to me no more of your rights to Casterly Rock. You shall have your reward, but it shall be one I deem appropriate to your service and station. And make no mistake, this was the last time I will suffer you to bring shame onto House Lannister. You are done with whores. The next one I find in your bed, I'll hang.
Dun dun dun. Bum bum. Pretty wild.
Yeah, I mean, that was the conversation that probably should have happened a while ago, right? I mean, we kind of talked about that.
Not 19 years later.
I'm sure they had a conversation similar to this back when the whole Tysha thing actually happened, right?
Yeah, probably. And I mean, he did kind of have it when he was like, don't bring your horse to King's Landing. And like,
yeah, that's true.
I guess he can claim because Tywin thinks that Tyrion did not bring the camp follower to town.
That's true.
That he didn't. So like he didn't disobey Dad yet directly.
Yeah, because it was a different one.
To be fair, too, I don't think Tyrion has been that disobedient to Tywin since we've started reading.
Well, Tywin told him one thing.
Other than bringing Shay.
What else did Tywin tell him?
Go be hand and do well.
Do my bidding and and win.
Yeah,
and
get rid of Pycelle, yeah, one of them's a cheat. Get rid of him. He did that pretty good. Yeah. Okay. The one thing I think we skipped over earlier, I just want to go back and mention Tyrion at one point thinks like Alayaya like got whipped because of this. She was trying to read all like she never did anything wrong. I was just using her as like a veil. He's like, how did I never think that this could possibly happen? I'm like, you idiot. Like this was literally her job.
Her job was to fall on the sword.
Yeah, that was weird, right?
Yeah, like you should have thought of this. Like, I guess it was, again, that was like in the moment, like I didn't give a fuck.
It was understood.
I didn't care if I was hurting anybody else or the risk I was putting other people in, as long as me and mine were safe.
Yeah, it was a weird way to.
Just because they talk about Alayaya here at the end and reminded me of it, but.
And she was little, right? She's like a young girl. Like.
Yeah.
He seemed like he actually liked Alayaya. Like he probably could have thrown somebody that he didn't end up knowing, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like, all right, like I'm gonna climb through this closet. Like, you just sit there. Like, I don't care. Like,
send someone in after I go through. That way, I never have to know them.
Yeah,
if they get captured and hurt. It's like there's a distance there.
But I think at the same time, like she needed to be in on it, right?
Yeah, whoever was in there had to know what was going on,
and it had to be somebody trustworthy and somebody willing to take this fall, essentially.
Yeah, hopefully Alayaya knew this was what she was signing up for.
Yeah, the mom must have known that this was a possibility, right?
Yeah.
Put it on the mom.
I just, in general, I like the Tywin. I just like Tywin. Like, again, I don't like Tywin. He's a huge dickhead, but anytime he's in a chapter, he's interesting as fuck. And now that he's in King's Landing, like, hopefully we'll see some more of him. Because I think, let me check, I think we've only seen him, like, actually in, like, 2 chapters up to
1 tent, 2 tents, maybe? The battle in a tent?
He probably showed up in the background of a decent amount of Arya chapters, right? Yeah. So he'd been in
he was there
3 Tyrions in Game of Thrones and 4 Aryas. 2 Aryas in Clash of Kings and the last 2.
But did he even have quotes? Like, I feel like he was just like mentioned.
Not really.
Yeah.
Well, I think he's in one of the Arya ones. He's like leaving Clash of King or leaving Harrenhal,
right? And
she's like, "Fuck, I wasted my names."
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, she sees him leaving and realizes she wasted her names. Yeah, I just like that. Like once, like him having dialogue is just, I think, is awesome.
All right. I don't even know a question to ask for Kyle. Where do you think? What's Tywin's? Or not Tywin, Tyrion's new. What does he do in King's Landing now? Like, what's the next play for him?
I mean, I think he's got to kind of build back up his pieces, right? Like he's got to recollect some new allies, is my opinion. But I don't know who that's going to be at this point because pretty much everybody doesn't hate him, but yeah, exactly. And like he's gonna go to this wedding. I don't know why he's excited for it and whatnot. Like I guess I don't see the answer to that yet, is what I'm trying to say.
Just an excuse to have fun and get drunk. That's why Nelson goes to weddings.
Because he says they can't keep me away, right?
I don't think that's what he's saying though.
Well, yeah, I mean, in that line, all he says is that they wouldn't be able to keep me away. A wedding is like I said, you won't get your nose cut off at a wedding. Better than a battlefield, basically.
Yeah, but I think he's got something else planned for that, but I don't know what it is. I can't even imagine. I have no understanding of what that is.
Do we know, Nels, how far away we are from the new year?
About 2 months, I think. I think it's about 2 months. Based on again, I have some problems with the online timeline I've been following. I'll link it in the description of this video.
Wow. Timeline's falling apart in front of your eyes.
Well, I stopped following it. I stopped following the online timeline when around one of the Davis chapters, where I just didn't think it added up to the timeline that they had. But for the most part, everything they have,
because he was traveling the whole coast in
and
3 days.
I've spent like an hour or two trying to work it out, like last weekend, and like.
So you need to find yourself a girl, mate.
Everything makes sense.
What movie?
That's Pirates of the Caribbean. Everything makes sense. Everything makes sense, like up until you get to the Battle of the Blackwater, and in some places that should be at the Battle of Blackwater is like 2 weeks earlier. So I see why they just moved Davos later, because it makes the Battle of the Blackwater match up. But I don't know. So if we go back to that timeline, which I think is pretty close, they might be like 2 weeks off for some characters. And I'm trying to figure it out based on like moons and shit like that. And like this chapter, like it happened, you know what I mean? Doesn't matter.
I think there is probably some play in that as well. Like it's probably pretty hard to keep a completely accurate timeline in terms of like times traveled and things like that. And that is something I have heard about the show, I guess, is like one of the gripes is like these people just appear 2 days later somewhere that's like a month away.
Well, that's the thing is anytime you look up a timeline, there's always like a key of like distance traveled. It's like assumed that like 1 mile is a fortnight, you know what I mean? Like this distance, like King's Land, like I see a lot of times like King's Landing to the Wall is 2 weeks. So like if you use that distance, or not King's Landing, Winterfell to the wall is 2 weeks. So like if you take a map and you like use that scale, you can basically just go 2 weeks anywhere if you go by foot or something like that. Again, I don't know, but the distances I don't mind the distances as much. I don't know. Either way, I think it's about 2 months away till the wedding.
Okay, thank you. Long answer for
a I don't know. Yeah,
I'm working on it. I might just end up going back to the timeline I'm using online. 2 months.
Thank you, Nels.
Yeah, Kyle. Anything else to add before we go to the spoiler section? We've been going for a while.
Yeah, I don't have anything good else to say. I don't think. I mean, we kind of covered a lot of it in terms of like Tyrion's crumbling, or his kind of structure is crumbling here. So
yeah,
I don't see him being able to function with that. Like I think he's gonna have to, like, that's just who he is, right? He's always got something going. So I think he's gonna try and build that back up.
Agreed.
That's all I gotta say.
All right, Kyle. Thanks for joining us here. Happy New Year, everyone. First pod in the new year.
I think actually the last one came out on the second, but
today's the second.
Yeah, it came out today. Right? Today's Monday.
Okay.
Yeah, it did, but this was our first one filming, I said.
Okay, gotcha.
Recording in the new year. Yeah.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Later, nerds.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
Bye, Kyle.
Bye, Kyle.
Thanks for hanging out. See you on the next one for Davos 1. Now, on to the spoiler section for Tyrion 1. Jeff, any hot takes?
So, nothing really hot. We obviously know, dude, before we get into it, you almost dropped a spoiler of fucking spoils, dude.
Kyle covered my ass, thank God.
Oh my God, dude. I like couldn't even like hide my face, and I know that doesn't mean anything to you listeners, but so we're in the dead time between spoiler and non-spoiler.
We weren't even recording, yeah.
And Nelson's talking about new artwork, and he's talking about that he's getting, because it was on the Discord, we asked you guys, should we go bald Jamie or not? And Nelson says, handless Jamie. And my face might have looked like the Scream
the jaw
mask.
hit the floor, yeah.
That would have easily been the biggest spoiler.
It's big time. But Kyle was so quick on it. He's like, oh, you mean hairless? Just like that. Like so quick. Oh, you mean hairless? Oh, yeah, hairless. And
Dude.
to be good, I think you brought your face back pretty quick, but there was like a holy shit. Because as soon as I heard it, I heard myself say it. I looked at you like, did I make a bad face? Was I like, oh, fuck, for a second?
I don't think you did, because we just started talking. Like, I even said hairless too.
We got back
like, I was
pretty
like,
quick.
Yeah, like, oh my God.
But I did get 4 drawings of Jamie. Two hairless, 2 with hair, and like each
and one handless.
Exactly, one handless in each. Yeah. So he hasn't actually started any of the art, but that's what we're gonna get. So, but yeah, that was close.
Huge. So I had to give you guys just the battles that we face every day trying to keep stuff from Kyle. Nothing hot, like I said, nothing too hot. We know.
Also, I mean, just we can say it here, like. In this one, again, there's a Renly's ghost thing, because I'll take that hit on that one, but you did spoil Renly's ghost for him.
Yeah, I did.
Which isn't a big one at all. I'm sure like we'll find out what happened there in the next chapter or two.
Yeah.
But yeah, in this one, like we had to cut some stuff out of the non-spoiler section where Jeff had accidentally dropped on the, it was one of the, Kyle actually didn't say if he remembered exactly who it was, but it's one of the it was somebody dressed up in Renly's armor, I think is what he knows at least.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll start from the back. And maybe just the first thing that's on my mind is that we know Tyrion is going to marry Sansa.
Okay.
Like, his new station, the station that Tywin's going to give him is a pretty big one. Maybe it's not the one that he wants, but he still would become, if everything went to plan, Warden of the North. So
you're saying because the chapter ends with Tywin saying, go back to your bed, speech me no more of your rights, you shall have your reward, but it should be one I deem appropriate. And basically what that is Master of Coin and Sansa.
Master Coin and Sansa, which then also gets you Winterfell by right and Warden of the North too, right? I don't know if they ever talk about that, but that's a pretty big station. I mean, Master of the Coin, I don't know, like it's a kind of a Fugazi thing. You're just moving dead around, basically.
Yeah, it's like a job. It's like, why do I want this job? I don't get paid for this job.
I guess it's better than the one that he gave him in Castle Rock. I don't know if that's actually true in the books or not, but he was master of plumbing.
I think it is. Make sewers. I think so, yeah.
Right? Master of plumbing.
So the other thing we just kind of, I don't know if there's anything to talk about it, that we were talking about it the whole time. And it's one of those things that I think we did a good job of not bringing up a hint, but I don't know when we find it out either. It's one of the things where at this point I'm confused. Like maybe we know it already, and I should be reminding Kyle. And what I'm talking about is Jaime became a Kingsguard because Aerys was trying to fuck Tywin.
Right.
Like, let's make your dwarf son heir by naming. That was the whole point of it. It wasn't like, yes, Jaime's a great fighter, but the only really again, I don't know if we ever get confirmation
like
of
Jaime
this, but
probably never would have went for it, right? Tywin wouldn't have, like, if Jaime came to Tywin and was like, hey, I want to be a Kingsguard, I want to be the best knight out there, I want to be a member of the Kingsguard, Tywin would have been like, no, you're heir to Castle Rock. Like,
yes,
all this is way more important than you being a Kingsguard.
Yeah, exactly. And then what happens, I think, is there's some whispers going around that, Tywin runs the kingdom, not Aerys. Aerys is just like, he's totally just being like controlled by Tywin. And Aerys, to get back at Tywin, was like, hey, Tywin, fuck you. Your son's the Kingsguard now. Like, look who's now the heir, like literally trying to like make fun of Tywin because of Tyrion, I think is the whole point of that.
From Aerys' point of view, it definitely is on brand, I think.
I'm just like, think about that. Like, again, Tywin's an asshole, but in this conversation, when Tyrion demands this, right? Tywin's still trying to figure out a loophole to undo what Aerys did, right?
Right. And I would take it even a step further to spoiler that you have, I think, are a proponent of, that Aerys at least is half the father of Tyrion.
Tyrion Targaryen. That's a big spoiler. That's a big theory that people are, I feel like the fandom is pretty 50-50 on.
Right. So even if you're not, but like, all right, so now Jaime's a Kingsguardman. Tyrion becomes the heir, who's actually Aerys' kid, not Tywin's.
Yeah, so Aerys, and think about if Aerys knew, right, that Tyrion was his, right? By naming Jaime to the Kingsguard, he just stole Castle Rock.
Right.
He put his child in Castle Rock instead of Tywin's child.
But the problem is, like, this is the whole problem with this time period. There's no proof. And Tywin even says it, like, I can't prove you're not my son. So does he even have that thought that...
Yeah, one of my favorite YouTubers for Song of Ice and Fire stuff is In Deep Geek. I don't think I talk about him a lot. I've mentioned him a lot, but he's awesome. I feel like I'm in the same boat as him as the Tyrion Targaryen thing, where it's like very, very possible. It's one of those theories that out of all the tinfoil theories, there's so much evidence of this thing. Like even in book 1, Tyrion getting like all these, like when he talks to Jon at the fire, right on the way to the wall, he's like, I dream of dragons all the time. I love like, you know what I mean? There's some definite like Tyrion Targaryen stuff. And then, but at this point, like, how would we ever know? Tywin's dead. Joanna's dead. Aerys dead. How would we ever find out unless it's like Bran going
DNA
back?
test.
So I think it's one of those things where George is playing with us, but we'll never know for sure, right? It's also one of those things where I think if you look at it, like plot-wise, it's way more interesting if Jaime and Cersei are Aerys's and Tyrion is Tywin's, right? Because Tywin hates Tyrion. Like, fuck you. Like, I can't prove you're not mine. What Tyrion, I think, says right before he kills Tywin says, like, I hate you. You're no son of mine. I think what Tyrion says is, I'm you, writ small. Or maybe Jenna Lannister says that to, and there's a part where Jenna Lannister is talking to Jaime, and Jaime's like, I wanted to be like my father. And she's like, no, Tyrion is your father. Like, those two are the same people. So there's like a lot of comparisons of Tywin and Tyrion, right? You even see like they're scheming and stuff like that.
Right.
So that, but then there's the part where like Jaime sees Cersei when she burns the entire Tower of the Hand, right? This is in, I think, book 4 or 5. I think it's book 4. She thinks that Tyrion, after Joffrey's death, Tyrion is hiding in the wall, or after Tywin's death, Tyrion's still hiding in the walls of the Tower of the Hand. So she burns the entire thing with wildfire. This isn't in the show at all. And Jaime, when he's looking at her, he's like, holy fuck, I've never seen anyone look like this, like at a fire like this, except for Aerys. And they both have the green eyes, right? Like the wildfire eyes. So I think there's, in like Mad Queen Cersei, I think just like theme, plot wise, book wise, it makes more sense if Tyrion is Tywin's only son, right? And Cersei and Jaime are both
that would be crazy.
Aerys' children. But again, it's one of those things where like I don't know if we're ever going to find out. All of it's possible. So I think it's kind of just George like
all of it's possible with a time traveling Bran.
So yeah, there's a bunch of wild theories about like who's child in terms of like the Lannister kids. Tyrion Targaryen's a good one. If you want more on that one, look up. I think In Deep Geek has a good video on that, so check that out. Next, Shay. It's again just something I wrote down while we were talking. We've mentioned before that there's a theory that Shay is works for Tywin, right? That Shay is spying on him. I think you were big on this theory at one point.
Right. We went deep, and I think I was all in on that the last time.
I think you were all in at one point. Yeah, when Tyrion goes to visit her in the manse, something happens, and I think you're like, fuck yeah, I'm in on this. Or the whole, when Tyrion goes to the brothel, it seems like the sneaky way in and out that he's using is made by Tywin, right? Some other hand that made this in the past is what Varys says. The stained glass window in that room is red and gold. So the idea is Tywin is the one who had this pathway made who sneak it whores in and out.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like Shay was coached up.
If Shay is Tywin's, right, Tywin is whipping Alyaya here. I mean, Shay does end up in Tywin's bed. There's a lot of just Shay symbolism with the whole Tywin ends the chapter by saying, the next whore I find in your bed, I'll hang. While Tywin's wearing the gold chain, I mean, she doesn't get hung by it, but she gets strangled by this chain that he is wearing.
Basically the same thing. Yeah.
Exactly. But Tyrion is one that does it. Tyrion hangs the next whore he finds in Tywin's bed. Is literally how the book ends. That's how Tyrion's book...
It's how the turntables have...
Is this... George has to know that, right? Is that a huge coincidence that the Tyrion's first chapter ends with Tywin saying, you're done with whores. The next one I find in your bed, I'll hang. And I'm pretty sure the very last chapter of this book for Tyrion.
I'm all in to believe that George knew. George, I think this is one of the things that he probably always had was that Tyrion's going to kill Tywin. His whore that he loved would turn out to actually be a whore.
It's one of those things where it's I feel like we can almost see when he gets the idea, right? We're 3/4 of the way through Clash of Kings, and we get the first ever mention of this chain, right? I'm pretty sure the gold, the hand of the king chain, is never mentioned one time ever.
Yeah.
Until 3/4 of the way through Clash of Kings, and Tyrion comes back from a council chamber right after Alyaya gets taken, and Shay's naked wearing it. That's the first time I think we ever hear of this chain. Right. To me, that is when... And also in that same chapter, Shay tells, when Tyrion's how did you get here? Shay's Varys was taking me through a secret tunnel, and I saw a dragon mural on the floor, and then I climbed a ladder. When Tyrion is escaping to the dungeon, he walks over a dragon mural, and he's hold on, I gotta go fuck up daddy real quick, who I know is above me, because Shay told me how to get here, right? So all that is, George knows Tyrion's gonna kill Tywin back then, clearly, right? It's a setup. Right. But it's the first mention of any of that shit. So it makes me think George was 3/4 of the way through, had this idea, planted it, and now is just playing game. Basically between that chapter and the actual it happening,
building it up. Yeah,
there should just be foreshadowing the whole way through. We should just be on the lookout.
Yeah, that was the other. I think that's the only real things that what happens with Tyrion becomes Master Coin. He gets the marriage to Sansa. I mean, then the Purple Wedding. The Purple Wedding is.
So this is good. I like how Kyle thinks there's going to be something up with the wedding. Right? Yeah. I think what Kyle knows, spoiler-wise, there's two big things left that Kyle knows spoiler-wise. He knows that there's something big that happens called the Red Wedding, and then the Hodor thing. But the Hodor thing, we know spoiler-wise, hasn't even happened in the books yet. So I don't
and I think, if you just go season 8, Brand King and shit like that.
Brand King, yeah, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I think he might, when we get closer to it, he might suspect that the Joffrey wedding
is the red
wedding. Yeah. Because we'll hear more about that throughout the whole book. The thing is, I think this book only takes place over 4 months, I think. Just want to put that in there. Because I said the wedding, I think, is 2 months from now.
Right. So then you got to go through the whole trial and the trial by combat.
Well, the red wedding I guess the
red wedding's going to happen a couple chapters.
2 months. Yeah. A lot of these chapters are back to back to back, a lot closer together, I think, than most chapters.
Yeah.
And some of the other books.
I'll be interesting. So there's a couple of different things on the context of the writing. The way Tyrion said, "Oh, there's no shot I'm missing this wedding," it almost it raised up my ears, even though I knew obviously kind of what happens, and we've debated on whether it's actually Tyrion who's supposed to get killed, and I don't want to dive into that subject, but it made you kind of perk your ears up the way he said, "Oh, I'll be at that fucking wedding," basically.
Is he planning? It's we don't think Tyrion's behind the murder because Littlefinger pretty much fesses up to it.
Right.
And we were in the head of Tyrion, and he never like plans it out.
Right.
Right. But it is weird at this point. And again, I think it's trying to get you to think about it.
And I think that's what Kyle is reading. That's what Kyle's reading into. So now I'm also curious because he's like on his, his eyes are on it. Once the red wedding happens, is he like, oh, well, shit, that's the red wedding. Maybe he's like, well, shit, it can't happen at Joffrey's wedding too. Like they'll have like extra protection for Joffrey.
Yeah, but I only heard of one crazy wedding. And what's crazy is the Sansa Tyrion wedding happens before anything else. I mean, nothing super absurd happens at that wedding, but
they just make
the first wedding of the book is the Sansa Tyrion wedding. All right, are we done with that topic? What are we done with?
Yeah, I don't have anything really else to talk about. Bronn leaves him for...
I think Bronn sticks around with him for a little while. No?
He's got to leave him sooner or sooner.
Well, he eventually... I think
get
around
married
the time
to
of the
Lollys,
mountain,
right?
Well, the Mountain, the Viper, all that stuff happens this book. I think that happens around the time of that.
He's like, I'm not fighting for you anymore. Like,
I don't know if that conversation. I think that conversation happens. I think it happens in the books. Yeah,
that's like your favorite conversation.
I do love that. It's a great scene in the that whole like all the conversations Tyrion has when he's in jail in the show is so good.
Yeah, Jaime, Martell.
So yeah, I guess one thing here, Tywin's writing important letters, and like they mentioned a few times how he's writing important letters. Tyrion Joe's like, oh yeah, you have important letters to get back to.
Yeah, I mean it's basically to Roose, right? Is he writing letters to Roose? What happens at Duskendale? Give me
they all die. The North.
They just kill the Northmen. They kill the Northmen.
Big time. Yeah, they pretty much lose big time.
So is Roose then like, oh fuck, we're fucked?
Is Roose already?
Did Roose send those guys to get trapped?
On purpose, yeah. He's like, I can give you a third of Rob's army, is how I can prove my loyalty to you, Tywin. Is kind of what I'm thinking. Again, I'm not sure if that's a fact, but knowing what we know in hindsight, that Roose very quickly here is switching over sides.
You think he's already made that deal? It's not a reaction to them losing at Duskendale?
I think what makes sense right now, yes. I think what makes sense right now, where I'm thinking is the Red Wedding isn't planned, but Roose has realized Rob fucked up.
Right, by bringing this girl around.
Yeah, once the Freys are gone, and he has basically been like, hey, Tywin, here's my show of good faith. I'm on your side now. You can trust me because I'm giving you a third of Rob's army.
Yeah.
Right? They're going to Duskendale. This is Tywin being like, okay, maybe scouts have reported that what Roose told him was correct. And he's like, okay, time to go capture him. I believe you, Roose. And now he is currently writing the letter back. It's like, here's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Red Wedding. Similar letters going to the Freys. Now it's me, you, the three of us versus them. I trust you now that you're giving me the people. Again, maybe Tywin would wait till
it's actually done.
Duskendale's, yeah, exactly.
I mean, he could write it, not send them. He could write it, not send it.
Exactly. But I think this is definitely, again, a Red Wedding, a little foreshadowing.
For sure. I forgot that was mentioned too.
And again, just a quote I had, I think I already read it, but like to the Joffrey thing, when Tyrion thinks of Joffrey's wedding, there was this to be said for weddings over battles, at least. It was less likely that someone would cut off your nose. But in this book, there's 2-3 weddings where people die. Joffrey dies, and like Rob dies. I mean, all these people die.
A lot of people die.
2 out of 3, the weddings are just as bad as battles. I mean, and just think about like House of the Dragon.
You do get your nose
just think about like, what was that, episode 4, House of the Dragon, when basically we hear that Rhaenyra is going to be wed to Laenor. What was everyone in the fandom saying? Like, oh fuck, there's going to be a wedding next episode. It's going to be bad. It's going to be bad. Like even people who hadn't read the books, like
every wedding, you're on your toes.
And what's funny is in the books, it's not bad. Like the wedding goes fine, and then there's like some tournaments later in the week, and that's where Kristen Cole beats the fuck out of Laenor. But in the show, they're like, let's make the wedding bad.
Not Laenor, he beats his boyfriend.
Joffrey, yeah. They're like, let's make the wedding bad. And they just throw it into the wedding. So
just jives. It's the name Joffrey in a wedding.
Joffrey in a wedding, yep.
Yeah, it is funny.
Another just a quick one, Arianne Martell.
Yeah.
Marcella's getting along with Arianne Martell.
I actually screwed this up when I was reading it, because I read it as Aerys was in love with Arianne Martell.
Okay.
Because it's like Marcella made it there.
Eventually, yeah.
Right, it is true. It's like Marcella made it there with Aerys Oakheart, and she is infatuated with. Yeah. And I was like, oh fuck, like it's a she. She's infatuated with the girl like that. Let's be honest. I don't know.
Marcella's too young. Ariane's like what, 20, I think, at that point. But like, she becomes a pretty major POV character next book, and this is the first time we've ever heard of her. Like, we've heard of Trystane, we've heard of Doran. I still don't think we've ever heard of Quentin. If we have, he's not on my notes.
Yeah, I don't think we definitely haven't heard of Quentin.
But this is the first, like, I had to put her in the notes for the first time, which is kind of surprising considering she's going to be a POV. So that's all I had. She was the first mention of her.
Yeah.
So the next thing I think is all kind of the same one. So there's a few times where they say the word catspaw in this chapter.
Yeah, a bunch. And I'm sure we looked it up. It's a Game of Thrones word for assassin, right?
Sure, but my point is when I say catspaw, what do you think of? There's like one time that I think of, like when you say catspaw, I think of one thing. Exactly, the Bran assassination dagger. That's what I think of when I hear catspaw. So when Tyrion says it like literally 3 times, I think, in this chapter, but he's always thinking about Mandon being the catspaw and Cersei being the cat.
Right.
We're pretty sure that's not true, right? I'm pretty sure we get Cersei.
You think it's Joffrey, right?
Well, I think it's Littlefinger.
Right.
Right. So I'm wondering here, Tyrion is thinking it's Cersei, and I'm pretty sure it's like 100% not Cersei because we get chapters from her point of view, and I'm pretty sure.
So should we just be looking out every time catspaw?
I'm just wondering if
Littlefinger's behind it.
Like in the Jaime chapter, he thinks back on this, right? Again, no one's really thought about the Bran thing in a while.
Right.
And it's coming up in a few chapters like in a row or close together, right? When Jaime thinks of it, what does he think? He thinks
Cersei did it on her own.
It must have been Cersei. Like, who else could have done it? Right. It doesn't make sense really for anybody else to have done it. But he's surprised, like, how could it have been Cersei? She would have sent me. So he's like, it must have been Cersei because who else would it have been? But he doesn't think it fits.
Why would she be that stupid? Because I would have killed him.
Exactly. He still doesn't think it fits. So then here we have Tyrion blaming Cersei again. Thinks Cersei sent the catspaw for another thing. That here in this one we're pretty sure it wasn't Cersei. Again, I'm pretty sure the Littlefinger is like to me that's like a 99% locked up thing.
Littlefinger makes more sense.
I think you'll be convinced when we get some of the quotes later. Quickly, I think in the next few Tyrion chapters he gets information from Mandon that I think points to Littlefinger pretty heavily. Right?
Yeah.
We hear that like Jon Arryn.
Yeah, I'm not going to dispute that. I don't think it's
Jon Arryn
Cersei.
Didn't like him, but he got appointed by Jon Arryn. He came from the Vale, right? He knew Sir Varys Egan. Yeah. So it's like Littlefinger told Lysa to tell
right
one of those things.
Littlefinger's fingerprints are all over it.
Again, I'm just kind of saying there's parallels, right? The catspaw is getting blamed on Cersei in both cases. In this case, we don't think it's Cersei, and in the Bran case, it makes sense that it's not Cersei either. I think there's a Jaime chapter either later in this book when he gets back to King's Landing where he talks to, it is because it's either right before or right after the wedding, but he talks to Cersei about this. And what Cersei says is she was talking to Robert right after Bran had fallen, and Robert was really drunk. And he was like, oh, we kill a wounded animal if it breaks a leg or if it gets crippled. Why don't we have the same stomach to do it to children? Right? Like, what a horrible life to live like a cripple. Yeah. And Cersei concludes that Joffrey did it. She thinks, because we know the knife was Robert's anyway. Like we learned in the first book when Catelyn talks to
Littlefinger, right?
No, it's the Master at Arms. Aaron Santagar, the Master at Arms. He's the Dornisman. He's the Master at Arms. She talks to him. She's like, "Oh yeah, it was Robert's. Like he just had a fuck ton of daggers. Like it was actually Robert's dagger. But he didn't like it. He preferred a dagger that Jon Arryn gave him when they were kids. Like he always got all these fancy daggers as gifts, but he always used like his old school dagger from Jon Arryn.
Yeah.
So we hear that at some point, but basically, I think in the fandom, the conclusion is what Cersei says. Cersei says it wasn't me. Jaime says it wasn't him. Who else knew about it? They conclude it was Joffrey, but Joffrey's dead. And I think there was actually a quote where after book 2, someone asked George, like, hey, George, will we ever find out who actually sent the catspaw? And he said, you'll find out in the next book. And I think he said that during Clash of Kings, like before Storm of Swords came out. And at Storm of Swords, we don't really know for sure, but Jaime and Cersei come to the conclusion that it was Joffrey. So people have put together the fact that that's what they conclude, and George has said, yes, you'll know the answer. That means it's the true thing. I'm not 100% convinced, but...
I mean, it could be Joffrey. Why would Joffrey kill Bran? Because of the wounded animal thing?
Just because it would make Robert happy is what Cersei concludes. Like, he overheard Robert saying this. He always wanted to make Robert, like, please his father, so that's why he did it.
But then again, like, sending an assassin, I feel like, would be like Robert would be like, you bitch, like you should have killed him yourself.
Kind of like Jaime, like I would do my own killing.
Yeah.
But what I'm suggesting here is if we're taking this parallel of catspaw to catspaw, right? here, Cersei's getting blamed for something that I think is very, for sure, Littlefinger. Littlefinger clearly capitalizes on the dagger situation after the fact. He blames it on Tyrion. Tyrion gets captured. It starts the entire war.
Uh-huh.
Like, does that potentially mean that Littlefinger was behind the Bran dagger thing? You know you see that connection I'm drawing there?
Yeah, and we've talked about that before. We've talked so much about like Lysa sending the letter to get the eyes to the Lannister and like, oh, let's give them actually something that like really would piss off the Northmen, like, oh, they're trying to kill your son.
Yeah.
I'm not.
The only problem I have is Littlefinger didn't know.
Being like,
he didn't know Bran was paralyzed though. Like that means, like to me, if you believe that Littlefinger was behind the assassination, you have to believe that Littlefinger planned to assassinate someone, whether or not.
Right. Whether or not
maybe it wasn't Bran.
Whether or not Bran had fallen from the thing.
Maybe he planned to assassinate Rickon, or maybe he planned to. But I don't understand why he would do that. But to me, like the plan has to be in motion when the King's Party leaves to go north. There has to be an inside man with a dagger.
And you don't think there's any shot that he kind of like snuck out and like trailed the party?
Maybe, but not.
Like we don't know that he was in King's Landing, right?
Littlefinger? Oh, Littlefinger was in disguise the whole time. You're saying maybe was there in Winterfell with them. I guess that's possible.
Like
I never thought about that.
Or at least like in Winterstown
I think you need something like that. Something like that I've never really heard of or considered. That would have to be true though for Littlefinger to be behind the dagger thing, because there's no way that
he's too
Bran
far
falls
away.
and then he
communication's too far for it to happen that quick.
Exactly. But I guess like long-windedly, what I'm hinting at here is because of all the Catspaw Cersei stuff here, where I don't think Cersei's the actual one, that hints to Cersei's not at the actual one. And if we compare who is the actual one, maybe it's the same in both cases, which would point to in my mind, Littlefinger.
Yeah.
Last thing is just the very first line of this chapter, and you're not going to think anything of it yet, but later on in book 4, this will become a big thing. He woke to the creak of old iron hinges. And I'm sure I've talked to you about this when you read it the first time. Does that ring any bells to you?
No.
Aeron Damphair. Right.
Okay.
So he becomes a POV character in book 4.
Right.
When he was a child, Euron used to come into his room, and he used to sleep with his other brother. Euron was the older one. Him and his younger brother, I think his name is Yuri. And Euron used to come in and molest them at night. And Aeron is terrified. He's like petrified, scarred by the sound of this old iron hinge creaking open, because it's the sound before
trigger of
Euron walking in, right? So he woke to the creak of old iron hinges is like a thing that I'm pretty sure will start an Aeron chapter like that, and then he'll think back to it becomes like a very reoccurring, these old iron hinges that creak. It's just weird. And here Tyrion again, I don't know, it's not right away, but he's like he saw a shape moving. It's like one paragraph later. Well, he woke to the creak of old iron hinges. Who, he croaked. At last he had his voice back, raw and hoarse though it was. The fever was still on him, and Tyrion had no notion of the hour. How long had he slept this time? He was so weak, so damnably weak. Who, he called again, more loudly. Torchlight spilled through the open door, but within the chamber, the only light came from the stub of a candle beside the bed. When he saw the shape moving toward him, Tyrion shivered. Here in Maegor's Holdfast, every servant was in the queen's pay, so any visitor might be another of Cersei's catspaws, sent to finish the work Sir Mandon had begun. So again, here, he's not afraid of Cersei, but the door's opening, and he's afraid basically that one of his siblings has sent someone after him. He's calling out, like, who is it? I have a feeling we're going to get a lot of this, very similar feeling from this in Aeron chapters. And I don't know what it means, but like just reading, I was like, this seems like an Aeron chapter.
I would say most iron hinges at this point in this world probably creaky, but I get it. Like, obviously it matters to one character. I don't know what it means to Tyrion.
But here Tyrion,
the shadowy figures coming to molest him.
Yeah, well, not to molest him, but to do him harm. Right? He's afraid that somebody sent by Cersei to fuck him up.
Be on the lookout for a hingy.
I don't know. This is one of the ones that I'm like, I figured you'd be like, I don't know about it, but I think later on you'll be like,
I'm not going to say no to you.
And again, I don't know what it means, but it definitely seems like a parallel.
Just look out for a squeaky hinge? So
again, this isn't a squeaky hinge thing, but for some reason, I listened to the audible book of the Telltale Heart. Do you know that song? Telltale Heart. Telltale Heart. It's like a famous, I think it's Edgar Allan.
Yeah, I've definitely heard it. Yeah.
It's like really short story.
It's where he puts people on the floorboards?
Yeah, exactly. But that book is like, he's like creeped out by an old man, and he like opens the door a sliver and then sticks his head in a lantern and then opens like the lantern light and shines it on this guy. And he does that every night for 7 nights in a row. and on the 8th night the guy wakes up and that's when he kills him. And I don't know, it just gives me like this, the whole like open the door, guy come in, there's a light, like Tyrion's like there's the light. I don't know.
Okay.
Just gave me, again, I think it's one of those things that just because I read it, it's the reason I'm drawing the parallel.
Sure.
But that little first 2 paragraphs gave me telltale heart vibes.
All right.
But yeah, that was the last thing I got. Long spoiler section, long non-spoiler section, gonna be a long edit for the big dog.
I don't think it will be. You'll be able to cut through some stuff. But all right, thanks.
Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you all in the next one. Davos 1.
Bye.